Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Polina. So in today's video, I want to talk about living in a small town in Germany. So I moved to Germany in November 2021. So it's been like half a year, I think. And I live in a small town in Bavaria, like 1.5 hours from Munich, kind of close to Nuremberg. And yeah, it's a small town, about 17,000 people living here. It's been about 6 months that I'm living here, and I think I can now kind of tell my view on living in a small town. And I had a lot of doubts and I had a lot of fears when choosing the place to live. I was doubting between moving to Nuremberg or closer to Nuremberg. I was, having fears that it will be boring and so on. And yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a full year. Maybe I will make an update after some longer time, when more time passes, when I speak German better and so on. But anyways, I wanted to also share how my first 6 months here have been. And I want to mention some pros and some cons of living in a small town. And it's not just a small town, but the whole area is kind of rural. There are literally farms and fields all around. Like going 10 minutes from the center, you can see like cows and chickens in people's yards and so on. So it's a really like rural area. But at the same time, it's not too far from city, right? Like Nuremberg is not too far. So yeah, it's kind of okay. But anyways, let's start with pros. So I think the biggest advantage for me is that in smaller towns, you usually get much more value for money in terms of accommodations. Bigger cities are expensive. Munich is extremely expensive. They say it's a really huge problem to find a good apartment there, an affordable apartment. And smaller towns are usually cheaper, which is completely like logical and understandable. So we actually live in a house. It's not a big house. We don't have a yard or anything. It's actually a very old house from like 15th century or something. But I never expected to like to live in a house at this point in life, We were looking for apartments, and then this house came up, and the price was almost like the same as 3-bedroom apartment, but the house has much more space. And actually, I think soon I'm going to make like a review of the house, because it took a really long time to put all the furniture after moving, and it's still like not 100% how I want it to be. I would like to put more like decorations and just like less important things like shelves and so on. But all of the main furniture is already here, so I'm going to make a tour of the house in one of the next videos. So stay tuned if you don't want to miss that. So yeah, that's a really huge advantage, is that you get much more in terms of accommodation in smaller towns than in cities. All right, next one. Everything is in walking distance. I mean, this one is pretty obvious. I really love it when you don't have to take public transport to go to places. When you can go to a restaurant or bar around the corner. And yeah, it's really nice. Before moving to Germany, I was also living in a kind of quite a small town in Spain. And I realized that I really love it, that you can just walk anywhere. Like the furthest point in the town, you can still walk there, like it's not going to be very far. And yeah, it's really nice. I really like it. The next point is, of course, that smaller towns are quieter. And I mean, it really depends on your personality, of course. Some people cannot stand living in small towns because it's just boring for them. I genuinely like the quiet. I prefer to have some peace, some quietness. I don't like really busy, especially touristic places like, living in Barcelona, for example, it would not be for me. Or Munich can also be very touristy in the center. So this is something that I really don't like. So living in a small town, it's really quiet. If you prefer like a more peaceful, calm lifestyle, then of course that's great for you. And another point to add here is that it's also safe. It's much safer in terms of crime to live in a small town. Like there is nothing major at all going on here in terms of crime. So I feel really safe walking the streets even when it's dark. And yeah, I mean, that's always great. Alright, the next point, it can kind of be a pro and a con at the same time. But it's that when you move to a small town in Germany or to be honest, anywhere else abroad, you will not have options of speaking English, of getting things in English, most probably, which means that you're going to be forced to learn the language. It can be an advantage and a disadvantage, because you're going to push yourself to learn the language faster. You're going to push yourself to speak German, because you know that most probably people will not speak English with you, that you will not find options in English of, I don't know, like classes or things like that. So you are forced and you're pushed to learn the language, to integrate. And it can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? You will probably integrate much faster if you're living in a small town in Germany than if you live in a bigger city, where you can always just switch to English, you can find anything in English, your friends are gonna be English speakers, and so on. All right, let's move to cons. The biggest con for me right now, it's like after living for 6 months here, it's how hard it is to actually find friends and meet people when you're living in a small town. Again, coming back to the previous point, there is not so many foreigners, there's not so many expats. If you don't speak German fluently, it's going to be very hard to make friends with Germans. So yeah, this is something that it's really tricky when you're living in a small town. 6 months after moving, I haven't really made any friends in the town where I'm living. I have a really good friend who lives an hour away from me. I have some friends who live in Nuremberg, but nobody really in the town where I'm living. And yeah, it can be really hard. I mean, meeting people, I think, and having your own community, your own circle, it's one of the most important, the biggest things that make you feel more like home, that make you feel comfortable, that make you feel, integrated in the country. If you don't have friends, you're kind of still living in your own bubble as a foreigner, if that makes sense. And another con is, it's completely related to that, and it's that it can take much longer to kind of feel comfortable. In a big city, you can come and you can immediately find things to do in English. You can meet people straight away because there will be meetups of expats and all kinds of things. So you can immediately have your own circle, you can immediately make friends. In a small town, there is nothing like that going on, especially for foreigners. So it will take longer to actually feel at home and kind of feel like you belong, because in the end, there's not so many foreigners and you do feel kind of different than anyone else. Whereas if you live in a big city, there is so many expats now living everywhere that you're just one of them. You can feel like you belong straight away. The next con is something that I mentioned many times in my previous videos when I was talking about my experience of living in Germany, and it's that the winter is really hard and it was really, really boring. Everything is dead, the weather is bad in winter. It's cold, it's really, really great. You just don't want to do anything outside. And again, if you're living in a big city, you can find many things to do. You can find all kinds of classes, you can find, some meetups, you can go to bars, restaurants. In a smaller town, there's less of these options, and that's going to be the next con. So streets are literally empty. I think that most people really stay in most of the time, especially on Sundays. You go outside, if the weather is not sunny, it's completely dead. There is no one outside in a small town. And it's kind of frustrating if you are not used to this kind of thing, which I'm not, because I was living in Spain and on Sunday everyone is outside because most of the time the weather is really nice. So people actually spend time outside, they eat out and so on. Here it's the opposite. I feel like Sundays are for chilling at home because there is no one outside. And yes, winter has been really hard and it was boring. I've learned some lessons though, and I know what to do differently next year. I really hope that my German next year will be much better so I can do more things. But yeah, winter in a small town can be really, really boring, isolating, and nothing is really going on for months. And the last con is something that I already mentioned, is that there is less options of everything. So again, in a big city, in English or not in English, there is so many options of everything. You can have any restaurant you want, you can have all kinds of bars, you can find all kinds of classes and things to do. In a small town, of course, you don't have this. And it makes it difficult to find things to do, to meet people, because how else do you meet people in a small town? If you don't go to places, if you don't actually interact with people, you're not gonna meet anyone. So I work from home, I have a home office, and I don't meet people through work. And so for me, it's very, very important to have things to do after work, to have, I don't know, yoga classes, dancing classes, or to have some different restaurants to go to, or things like this, just things to do. And yeah, in a small town, it's a bit difficult. But actually, I think that's why the key for me, at least, is to live not too far from like a bigger city. That's what I always had. Like in Spain, I was living kind of close to Barcelona, but not in Barcelona. And here, kind of close to Nuremberg, but not in Nuremberg. So at least that's what I tell myself. Like if I really want something special, if I get really bored, I can still go to Nuremberg and, you know, do something different. It's not too far away. And generally, to be honest, I think that winter time and summertime are very, very different vibes here in Germany, and especially in small towns. As soon as the weather started to be kind of better, there is more things going on. And in summer, there is like a lot of fests and these different festivities. And in every town, there is something going on almost every weekend. And it's gonna be much, much more alive. And I have already even felt that. As soon as spring came, like people are doing more things, and yeah, like the weather is not so bad, and you kind of yourself want to go outside more and do more things. So yeah, I think summer is gonna be really nice. But I will update you guys actually after 1 year of living in Germany. I'm gonna have a updated like 1 year in Germany video where I will talk about everything, because it's really, really interesting for me to kind of document and to self-reflect how the first year after moving goes. I have moved quite a lot. I moved to Spain before, and before that I was living in Finland. But this time, when I'm a little bit older and I kind of know myself better, and I know what I like, I know what I don't like, I know what I want, it's really interesting for me to see how things develop, and I want to document that. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. If you have any other questions about living in a small town in Germany, comment down below, and yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.